Right, let's start with my number one. I'm not going to do a 3-2-1 countdown. Start with the person who in my mind represents the biggest problem in the health and fitness industry, Dr. Michael Mosley. I've said this before, I don't particularly care for Dr. Mosley's products, because that's what it is. He's a product, right? And every year he has a book to sell. In this case, this year, I came across this the other day. Someone sent me an email. I discussed this briefly last week, that someone had sent me an email linking to a Daily Mail article, because the Daily Mail always promotes this sort of stuff, because they really, it gets clicks, right? At the end of the day, stupid weight loss plans always get clicks. And Dr. Michael Mosley is always more than happy to oblige. Now, of course, he's a GP, right? He's qualified in, I think, 20, 30 years ago. So he's been for a while. But the problem is that he's more a publicist and a self-promoter than he is a doctor. And, his last book, the Fast 800 Keto Diet, is a prime example of this. So I'm going to talk about that for a little bit, because I think that really illustrates my point of the problem I have with Dr. Mosley and his type, because he's not the only one, right? Like I said, this is not about the people. This is about, I think he's a hack, but everybody that promotes his stuff is kind of just not helping the health discussion. And again, like I've always said, I don't do a lot of weight loss on this podcast, or indeed on anything, but we promote health. And if you promote health, the Fast 800 Keto Plan is pretty much a surefire way of, getting people sick and getting people sick really quickly. I'm talking mental health and all that sort of stuff. So last year, Dr. Michael Mosley, you might remember him from the 5-2 Intermittent Fasting diet. He did a program on the BBC about, and that's usually how he works. He gets a program out, and then on the back of that, he has a book coming out. He did that with the 5-2 Intermittent Fasting diet, where he basically says you eat whatever you want for 5 days, and then on 2 days, you drop to 400 calories or something like that, and you lose weight. Of course, you would lose weight because you're dropping to 400 calories, but we'll come to that in a little bit. Well, last year, or 2 years ago, he couldn't put out another book, because, if you put out a weight loss book every year, people stop buying it. So his wife put out the Fast 800. And I spoke about the Fast 800 before. A way to lose weight fast by dropping to 800 calories a day. Yeah, that's just not a good idea, right? We can all agree that that's stupid, and it's not a message we should be sending out to anyone. Anyone in the health industry that puts out that sort of messaging is really not helping the debate with regards to weight management and what health really, really looks like. So last year or 2 years ago, she brought out that book, and this year more money needs to be made, so we need something new. So interestingly enough, Dr. Mosley came, and that's me scrolling back to the top of the page because I want to quote him for this. He came across new research, right? Quoting him here. Remember that? We're going forward. So I was fascinated to come across new research by 2 Australian academics, which helps explain why so many of us, me included, seem hardwired to overeat. Well, first of all, you're not hardwired to overeat. That's just not a fucking thing. Pardon my French. Professors David Raubenheimer and Steve Simpson from the University of Sydney, and these guys are golden, right? These guys are qualified up to the hint. So again, no issue with them. Argue in their book, 5 Appetites, that we don't have 1 appetite for food, we have 5. Now, in 2020, Professors Raubenheimer and Simpson put out a book called Eat Like the Animals, What Nature Teaches Us About the Science of Healthy Eating. And they expanded on the protein leverage hypothesis, and bear with me, because this is quite an important bit where we see where Dr. Mosley fails. I will continue in this whole thing to give people their proper titles and all that sort of thing, because I think it's important. And, he went to medical school, so he is a doctor. Right. Now, remember when Dr. Mosley said that, he recently came across this. Protein leverage hypothesis is not recent. It's from about 2005. The satiety theory, which originally came out by Dr. Jesus, I should have had this ready. Dr. Susanna something. I can't remember. I'll look that up. I think that's important. Anyway, she came out with that. I'll give credit in the podcast notes. She came up with the satiety theory in 1995. So this stuff, and she basically said that you keep eating until your body is full, and that depends on two factors. That was what her theory was. It depends on two factors: protein and or fiber content. Fruit. So she found that highly processed food, Pringles, biscuits, and all that sort of stuff, McDonald's, all that sort of thing, will lead to people overeating because the body doesn't recognize that it's full, because it doesn't hit the saturation point. So it doesn't hit that point where your body recognizes the cues that it is full, right? This is what they talk about with intuitive eating a lot, right? About your fullness cues. So she's saying, and her theory was that unless you get enough fiber, or unless you get enough good quality protein, and it can be an animal source and it can be a vegetable source, but it has to be good quality and can't be overly processed, that you never get those fullness cues, and therefore you will overeat. And there's something to that. We know this kind of that makes sense, right? In the same way that I always say I can eat 5,000 calories of pizza or 6,000 calories of biscuits, but I can only really eat about, 1,000 calories of chicken breast, and then I'm done. And it's not because I don't like chicken breast. It's just because my body's saying, dude, I'm full, I've had enough, right? Now, the protein leverage hypothesis, which is, like I said, by Professor Raubenheimer and Simpson, and I might well butcher their names, by the way, but, I've never met the good people, and therefore I'm not sure how they pronounce it. I'm thinking Raubenheimer is about right. So they've been working on this from, 2005 roughly. That's when the protein leverage hypothesis came out. So that instead of focusing on the fiber element, it basically took the two elements from the satiety theory, or satiety, however you want to pronounce it, depending on whether you're American or British or German or whatever. They took two bits and they focused on the protein bit. And they've done tons of experiments into this since 2005. So when that book came out in 2020, like I said, I'll link to the book as well, by the way. Or at least I'll link to the title. I'm not in the business of selling books. When the book came out that said eat like the animals, and what nature then teaches us about the science of healthy eating, they basically expanded on that protein leverage hypothesis. That said, if you eat enough good quality protein, you will feel full. And if you don't, then you won't. Now I know that a lot of people find, and I was writing a blog post about this and I kind of stopped, but people find this when they do a keto type diet. Keto and Atkins and all those sort of diets are kind of easier to follow because A, they're straightforward, eat meat. B, they allow you to eat meat, and that's a big thing in the West. And C, if you eat good quality meats, they will keep feeling you fuller for longer. I think it's the M&S range even that is called fuller for longer. It's high protein sort of stuff. High protein unprocessed food. And I'm not saying you should go high protein, by the way, right? I'm not selling that side of things. Because if you remember, the original theory included fiber and all that. And that's important. Always get your fruits and veggies, people. Don't let these bastards tell you anything else. Right, so then of course, good old Dr. Mosley, he needs to put a new book out. A new dieting book, which kind of, again, for me is always a bit of a clue as into people's credibility, as in, how often do you change your advice on diet, on weight loss especially, right? And he doesn't change his advice. To be fair to him, he's remarkably consistent. Eat less. But the way he does it just doesn't make sense. Anyways, he presents this in that bit that I read out, presents it as if it's brand new knowledge. And I'm sure that it is to him, right? But that doesn't mean it's new knowledge, right? He was fascinated to come across new research by 2 Australian academics. Well, this is not new research. They've been at it since 2005. So it's new to him. And I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here. Because I would argue that the sentence that says, I came across new research, implies that the research has only recently been done. And, I'm guessing Dr. Mosley looks into these things when he writes his books. And that he therefore knows that the research isn't really new, right? The research is reasonably established. At least 25. I can go back 25 years. I haven't even traced it that much. So it's new to him. And it's a shitty way of phrasing it, because it means that he's discovered something, right? That's what it sells. That's what it sells. Then what he says is, eat too little protein, they say, and you'll be tormented by cravings and likely overindulge in all the wrong foods, whereas on a higher protein diet, your appetite can be satisfied on far fewer calories. Now, this is true. However, now we get to the crux of it, right? The amount of protein people require in their diet is, as Professor Raubenheimer and Simpson concluded, the percentages that are recommended are anywhere between, 8 to 15% of body weight, of your total meal consumption, which is way too low, right? Which is why even clubs like David Lloyd have peddled the healthy eating 40-30-30 split, right? 40% carbs, 30% fats, 30% protein. Because we know that kind of works, again, based on this protein leverage theory, hypothesis. So what that means is that what Michael Mosley tends to do, Dr. Mosley tends to do, is he then misrepresents the basics. He takes a lazy approach and basically uses something someone else has already done, in this case his wife, right? Because she wrote the 800 book last. And then he pretends to incorporate this new research, which it isn't, right, into his well-established routine. So the protein leverage hypothesis says that you need to aim for something around 30% of your daily calorie intake coming from protein, and that then you feel roughly full, right? And that's a deep sigh on my end. What Michael Mosley extrapolates from that is that you can translate that into a low-calorie diet, which is, of course, complete and utter horse shit. That is just not how it works, right? Say you are a typical man or woman. So female, 2,000 calories a day. I'm still using those shitty numbers. Everybody's different, right? Don't believe the general 90%. It's accurate for 90% stuff with regards to this. Everybody's calorie intake and calorie requirement is different. Some people is a bit more, some people is a bit less. The bigger you are, the higher your base metabolic rate will be. So don't take this as gospel. But based on 2,000 calories a day, 30% protein intake, right, that's fair enough, is roughly 650 calories worth of protein. Now what Dr. Mosley then does is say, I've put out this fast 800 keto book and you will never feel hungry again, because, and that is a quote, by the way. Right, so our recipes will get you burning fat but without going hungry. Now, if on my maintenance calories I need 650 calories worth of protein, then dropping to 800-900 calories a day, like I said, bad idea, don't do it, would mean on a 30% calorie intake, I only get 300 calories a day coming from protein. Right, so I'm missing my hunger cues. How is this not obvious to everybody? Right? My fullness cue is missed because I hit that at around about 600 calories. We established that if that is my true base metabolic rate, and again, all intuitive eating stuff is built around this, so it's important to realize this. If my base metabolic rate, if what my body needs to maintain and to feel healthy and to function optimally is around about 2,000 calories of high quality food in an ideal world a day, and 600 of that needs to be good quality protein, 300 isn't going to cut it, right? So I'll still be hungry. And that's where Dr. Mosley tends to fall apart. He sees an idea and then he sells a book based on really quite a hacky approach to science. And then when we look at the book, right? When we look at and I haven't bought the book, don't worry, I'm not giving that man my money. But I did give the Daily Mail a click, or 5 or 10, however often I read this remarkably stupid article, which I will also link to in the podcast description. Right, the Fast 800 Keto Plan in a nutshell, and see if you can see the problem with this. Stage 1, rapid weight loss. Well, that's a win, right? Trying to lose weight, do it rapidly. How does he get to do that? 800 to 900 calories a day for 2 to 12 weeks with protein add-ons to take you to 1,000 calories when needed. Well, thanks very much there, Michael, Dr. Mosley, sorry. I'll need that every day, thanks very much, because I'm never gonna hit my fullness cue. And even 1,000 calories a day for 12 weeks, are you out of your mind? Then he says this will lead to rapid weight loss. Yeah, it would do, because you're only consuming by at least 1,000 calories a day. This is not counting, adding in exercise and all that sort of stuff, right? This will lead to rapid weight loss, so yeah, it would. And health benefits such as falling blood pressure, blood sugars and blood fats without leaving you hungry. Well, let's break that one down. Health benefits such as falling blood pressure. That depends what my blood pressure is, thanks very much. Blood sugars. Well, I'll grant you there will be, if I eat like a normal human being, I will have fewer sugar spikes. Yeah, if I'm on a relatively high protein diet. And blood fat. That's debatable, right? Are we still on the saturated fat thing? I don't know. Without leaving you hungry. Well, we already established I'm going to miss my hunger cues. I'm still going to be, my fullness cues, so I'm still going to be hungry. And following the recipes, which are packed full of flavor and nutrients, are based on a 50-50 rule. More than 50 grams of protein, less than 50 grams of carbs a day. You should lose around 2 kg a week. So now, God help me, now not only we know from the oversimplified calories in, calories out rule that 500 calories a day leads to around about a pound worth of weight loss a week, right? The law of thermodynamics applies. I mean, it's oversimplified and there's a lot more to it, but fundamentally calories in, calories out still matters. And it's important to use a simple example here. So we know that if we cut 500 calories a day, we lose about a pound a week. And again, ballpark, not accurate, so ignore this. As soon as you hear it, ignore it. Double that is your 1,000 calories a day, so we lose 1 kg a week. We don't lose 2 kg a week, right? This is also, by the way, depending on what your base weight is, where you start. I've said before, I have one weight loss client left as a PT, who started on 380 pounds. Even he didn't necessarily drop 4 pounds every week. You know how much that is? 4 pounds every week? That's just brutal. You can only sustain that for a short period of time. 2 to 12 weeks, 800-900 calories a day. That is just, it's a nightmare on all levels, right? That's just stage 1. God love you. Stage 2, as he says, intermittent fasting. So we're still back on this fucking calorie control. With regards to intermittent fasting, pardon me, there will be a lot of swearing in this particular podcast because this sort of messaging drives me up the wall. Again, I'd happily grab a coffee with Dr. Mosley. It's not about the guy, right? It's about his message and the way this stuff is sold. 800 to 900 calories on 4 to 5 consecutive days a week and more relaxed but portion-controlled approach on non-fasting days. Increasing protein to 60 to 80 grams. Yeah, again, come on, dude. So on 2 to 3 days, I get to eat like a normal human being on a maintenance. And the rest of the time, I'm still more than halving my daily calorie intake. I'm a guy. I'm a personal trainer. I exercise regularly. I move a lot. 900 calories a day isn't going to be enough. It just isn't. And then a more relaxed but portion controlled approach. So I still can't, I'm still dieting on days 2 and 3. So I'm intermittent fasting on day 1, days 1 through 4 to 5, so say Monday to Friday. And then on the weekend, I get to eat like a portion controlled human being, increasing protein to 60 to 80 grams, which for me isn't anywhere near enough. And I've done protein for weight loss and protein for weight gain and maintenance and all that before. I need more than a gram of protein for my to maintain muscle mass. So I'm 94 kg. So dropping to 60 or 80 grams is a deficit. Still on those 2 to 3 days, I'm still in a deficit. Now the problem with this is not so much that it's yet another shitty weight loss book, because of course it is, right? That is just the way it is. That's what he sells. The problem that I have with this stuff is that it's a lazy approach that misrepresents the very basics of the science that it's allegedly based upon. Now, Professor Raubenheimer and Simpson put a lot of work into this stuff. They've done this for the past 15 years. So to boil it down into a very oversimplified, shitty diet plan that will fail. This will fail for most people. This is not healthy for most people. Most people cannot drop this low. And most people, you can't stick to this. 900 calories a day, it's slim fast all over again. It's just so remarkably lazy. Just don't do this stuff. And this is why Dr. Michael Mosley is my number 1 in the UK at the moment. At least for shitty messaging. And, before I'm going to get shot in the neck for this anyways, because people always point out that doctors are not part of the health and fitness industry. And, never a truer word has been spoken in the case of some of these doctors. Because you're definitely not in the health business if you're selling this stuff. Right? That is my problem with this. These are people with medical degrees. They know better. Come on. Right? I shouldn't every single year get emails about Dr. Mosley and similar hacks. Anyways, that's half an hour. Can you tell this is going to be a long one? Brings me on to number 2.